Okay, to get started here, we're going to begin by threading our needle. So again, this is size D Nymo thread, and I'm going to just find the end and get it threaded here onto my needle. This is about twice my wingspan, so it is a long string, but I find it much easier to start with a long string here than to add a new thread in the middle. And this gets me basically exactly the amount of thread that I need. I'm about 5'6", so that kind of gives you an idea there of my wingspan. So right now I'm just getting this needle pulled through to the center of the thread so that it's doubled up. We'll then add our first bead, tie ourselves a knot, and then we will get busy on the beadwork itself. Okay, so then we're going to take one of our blue beads and put that here on the very end of our thread. You can also, run this through the needle if you find that easier. I usually find it easier to just pick it up here with the very end of the thread and slide it on. There we go. Okay. And then we will take the other end, try not to get it tangled. There we go. And, whoops, need the end. My word, it's hard to see on this. Okay, so we have both ends, and we will just take those and tie just an overhand knot. And can just do it one more time if you want to make sure it's nice and secure. And we'll leave that little bitty tail there, and that will help us to mark our beginning point. And at the very end, we can just weave those ends into the rest of the project. Okay, and if we didn't get your thread exactly centered, this is a good time to just kind of finish that out. So make sure that you've got the thread at one end, your knot, and the single bead that we already have onto the thread there at the other end. So you can see we've got one little bead and our thread. Okay, you may want to, at this time, you may want to wax your thread. That can help to prevent some tangling, because here for the first little bit, it does try to get a little bit tangly, but that is a suggestion that may help you to avoid that a little bit. Okay, so the instructions and this chart are available on the Facebook group. This chart is in the pictures, and then the instructions are in the files. You want the instructions that are 2.36 inch Christmas ornaments. That is the size that we're working on here today. So today what I'm going to do is take you step by step of making basically, actually here, let me show you an example. Making this piece of beadwork. Slide it over so you can see that a little more clearly. And what you can see there, this is kind of the little netting that we're making of the beads. And I went ahead and did the different colors so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about as we go through the steps. And then I will have another video up of a simple version, which will just be 2 colors. So you can see that. And then we have instructions up as well for the version of this that has got one primary color on the outside, rather the top and the bottom of the Christmas bulb, and then the fire sequences in the middle. Those instructions are already on the Facebook site, and there are a few videos from last year on those. I did want to try this year as we start to get in and closer to the Christmas season to have some that were a little bit more in line with the diagram I put out, and also a simple version in case anyone was looking to kind of make some of these in bulk for our Bell Christmas project we have. that maybe didn't have a lot of beads already or didn't want to go buy a million different colors for making these. So hopefully that helps and everybody can participate, either making these for whatever you've got going on in your life, or if you want to make them as donations for our project for Bell Public Schools, we would certainly appreciate that. Okay, so let us jump in and move that little example out of the way. But we're going to start down here on our diagram. In this bottom corner, I've drawn a little star in mine. You can see here the order we're going to go is blue, pink, green, red. So these we're going to make this blue M, and then we're going to switch to pink. We're going to make this pink, basically another M. Then we'll move on to green. And then finally we'll end up here doing red. So the first three colors are all going to have 4 lines. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 3 for the red. So 1, 2, 3. And that will get us the foundation of our beading. And then we will join it by folding it in half, running one more line of beads, and then we will tighten the top and the bottom to make it fit on the ornament bulb. Okay, so we've already got started here with our string and our bead. And so the next step is going to be to follow our printed instructions. And if you see there on page 1 where it starts with setup, it's going to tell us again to cut our piece of thread, which you've already done. And then pull the needle to the center of the thread, and then tie our teal bead on the instructions, but we're going to say blue for this one, our starting color bead, and then tie the 2 ends together to secure, which we already did. And then we are ready to add our line 1 beads. And on the diagram here, this is line 1. So right here from the star up to this first end of this line, so line 1. And this is really a simple one. It's going to go pretty quick. So for line 1, all we're going to do is we're going to, so we've already got our 1 bead on our string. This is actually going to end up being part of the very bottom of the project and will be part of our closing loop. So we're going to go next. Our instructions tell us to add 1 silver bead. In this case, we're going to be referring to those as purple. So it tells us to pick up 1 purple bead. Whoops, don't throw them like I just did. 1 purple bead, and then 9 of our blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 more purple, and then 15 of the blue. Sometimes I like to just count them first. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Other times like that, I just kind of count them as they go. It kind of just depends how the beads are laying for me. And then we're going to use white here for our center beads on this project. So our center beads here on our chart are going to be this line right here in the center. So that's where those white beads are going to be. The rest of these nodes is how I think of them. The rest of the nodes are all going to be our purple color for this project today. And then this center row will be the white. So 1 white, and then we're going to do the other half of this row, which is going to be 15 more blue. $14, $15. 1 purple, 9 blue, whoops, I think I just did 15 again. Let's see here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yep, sure did. Okay, so 9, one more purple, and then one more blue. So that is all the beads for row 1. We're going to just carefully move all those beads down to meet up with our very first bead that we had. So you can see there, we do have our 1 bead that we started with, the silver, 9 blue, 1 purple, excuse me, so it's a 1 purple, 9 blue, 1 purple, 15 blue, 1 white, 15 blue, 1 purple, 9 blue, 1 purple, 1 blue. And so the reason why we've been doing this here at the end where we have got this 1 extra bead is because that, so the first one we added down here was going to be part of the bottom ring on the ornament, and this one is going to be part of the top ring. So to turn around and come back and start the next row, we're going to come up through the blue bead that we've already got on, and then we're going to skip over that bead and go back through the purple bead that was immediately before the very last bead in line 1. So then we're going to just carefully pull that down. In case you couldn't see what I did there to get that tightened. So whenever it was loose, I just pushed down the beads to where they lined up appropriately and then held them loosely in my fingers so that they would stay still, and then just gently pulled that down. It is important at this point to not get your beads too tight. If we start to get too much tension in our thread at this point, we'll start to see some buckling. The great thing about these ornaments though is that even if your lines are buckled and you have some tension that you would have liked it to be a little more even, it's going to look beautiful on the ornament. So this is a great project for everyone, especially if you don't do much beading. It's a great one because the outcome is going to look really, really good. Okay. So that was line 1 from the star up here. So we're not going to do lines 2, 3, and 4 the same way. On 4 though, whenever we're making this, it's going to actually just look like it's coming out straight here. But that is going to be the path. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 3 exactly like I just did on line 1. Okay, so that is our first line. Well, I guess our first set of 4 lines, like our blue strand for this ornament. This blue strand here also is kind of going to form the structure or the basis of the rest of our ornaments. We're going to now start building on to this M. And I just point out the M shape here for you because I find if I kind of mess up my movement or it gets twisted around, I can always come back starting with our starting point in these tails over here on the bottom left. And then I know that this goes into the shape of an M, and it can always get me right back to where I need to be with no issues. So let me put away these blue beads here as we're going to be moving on next to our pink strand. Okay, we're going to go back to the diagram for a second. So we have now started with our star and we have completed our entire line of the blue. And now we're going to move on and work on all of the pink. It's going to be the next 4 individual lines to make up that one long pink strand. One thing that we're going to start seeing here is that building that I was just mentioning. So whenever we start on the pink strand, we're going to go through and we're going to add 9 pink beads, 1 purple, 15 pink, 1 white, 15 pink, and then we are going to use an existing purple bead from the blue line, and then we'll add 9 more and then do our ending point here, which will be 1 more purple, and then our top turning bead will be blue. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do it again. So it's going to be adding it to 2 nodes, and then whenever after we make our turn, adding 2 nodes, and then this will be the one we share. Come down here, turn, we'll add these 2, we'll share this one, and then we'll show, and we're going to look, this one's going to be a little bit different because we're actually going to be crossing over and meeting the blue twice here on the pink row. So we're going to go into the top, and then we're going to come back down and around and come in here to the bottom. So we're going to end up back close to where we started with the blue, and then that will be just over halfway through with building this part of our ornament. So just like before, we're going to start with following our paper. So now we're on lines 5 through 8 on the instructions. So we're going to start by adding, I'm going to be adding 9 of the pink, just here for our demonstrations to hopefully make this all make sense and everyone to see where we are. You'll be using whatever colors you chose there. And of course for this whole entire demonstration. So 9, and we're going to add the purple. And again, this is just in the instructions, right? It tells you to add, or that's just there in our next in our line of beads, right? So we have the 9 and then 1 purple, and then we're going to do the 15 of the pink. Add 1 white for our center bead. Whoops, just 1. And then 15 more pink. Okay, I think I might have got 16 there. Nope, 15. Okay, so that is going to be now to the point in our pattern where it tells us to share an existing purple bead. And the existing purple bead that we're going to share is going to be right here. And we can see that from the diagram. All right, so we can see looking there, We had our M, we're going to go up. And then we know here at the top, based on the combination of our pattern instructions and this top purple and the second to last blue line. So that is the bead we're going to be sharing. And anytime whenever we are sharing a bead, we're going to go through the bead the same way that we have been adding every other bead. So we've been adding all the beads to the thread, right? Just like normal, going in the bottom and out the top. So we're going to do here, this whole entire line is going diagonally up. So that is how we go through that shared purple bead, up and diagonally. Whoops. If it gets tangled like that, it's easy to fix at this point. Just don't pull anything too tight. As long as everything is nice and loose and even, it's very easy to undo tangles like that. So there we have our first shared bead. And then continuing on the pattern, we're going to add 9 more pink beads. Purple, and then 1 more for the turning bead. Okay. And then we're going to turn. And as always, when you're working with beads, you know, the beads are never quite exactly the same size. Sometimes the beads are going to be just a little bit different size from one another. So if you find that like your pink beads are a lot bigger than your blue, you might have a little bit more crowding with that. If it's bad, you can always just take out one of the beads, you know, maybe do 13 and 13. But generally these are going to be close enough that your ornament will look good if you just stick with the basic numbers that I give you here. Okay, so now we've made our first pink line. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that. I'm going to actually go kind of slower here, or I guess not speed up the video like I did with the blue, just so you can see it, because I do think that this getting used to sharing the beads is certainly the part that feels the trickiest the first time you see it, if you've not done this kind of beadwork before. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not going to really have too much commentary on it, but I am going to go ahead and keep it at a pretty normal pace for the other lines here. Especially I'll talk through the end line. Oh, okay, so this is a good option, right? So my work here kind of got a little bit twisted as I was working out that, where I had my strands of my doubled up thread not exactly even. So this is what I was talking about earlier about whenever I get it a little twisted out of place, I just go back to that original strand of the blue and get it back into its M position, and then I can see everything is back and ready for me to continue working through. Okay, so now I've turned. We finished the first two pinks. We have two more to go. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going on this. And again, we'll just straighten that back out. We're ready to continue. Okay, so now that I'm just finishing up my turning bead on that third row of pink, we're probably to the trickiest part of this little process. So, and the only reason it's tricky here is because everything else we've been doing, we've been going in one straight direction, right? We've been going diagonal up, diagonal down, diagonal up. But now, of course, if we go diagonal down, we're going to be working over here outside of our project. So what we're actually going to do here is we are going to start our project, and then whenever it's time to share our bead, we're going to come back down here and share with this bead right down here. Go ahead and do the first 9 just like normal. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Pick up our purple, do 15. Okay, and then after the 15 for the middle, we'll pick up our white. And then now we're going to do 15 more. So there's 15. And now we're going to come back in. So this white one will kind of be the far point out there. And we're going to come back in and go diagonally down from top to bottom in the same diagonal direction as we want that row going. And share that purple bead. Right, so now we will finish up this last set here, last segment on our last pink line with 9 more pink beads. Purple and a turning bead. All right, we'll go ahead and make the turn to secure the beads that we have on the thread before we set up for moving on to the green strand. Okay, now before we jump in on the green, just want to kind of again walk through where we've been. So we've done all of our blue, we moved on and now finished up our pink, and now we are ready to start our third color, which is going to be green. So we're going to again go up, and down. The key difference here on the green though is that we are going to be sharing with 2 beads from the previous rows. So whenever we make our first green row here, we're going to add on 9 green beads, 1 purple, add 15 green, and then we're going to share with the white that was on the previous purple row. And then we'll add 15 more, and we're going to share the purple bead that was up here on the second blue row. And then we'll come up here, turn, and go down and do it again. So the green will be sharing the second 2 beads for each of those. And you might ask, kind of how I decided to keep the colors here like this. And the colors really do represent the number of beads that they're sharing. I know this purple one here is a little bit different, but since we are sharing at the bottom there, I want to keep that one going. So where we're sharing these 2 beads together, those are the green. So we'll start by picking up 9 green. Through a green, 1 purple, and then 15 green. Okay, and then we're going to share this white bead right here. Oops, if I can get my needle in there. So just like always, we're going to go from the bottom up in the same direction. This is another good reason why it's important to keep your tension nice and loose so it's not hard to get that back through when it's time. So sharing that white bead, then we'll add 15 more green. Sorry, I keep moving out of frame there. And then we will share with this purple bead. All right, now we'll finish up with the 9 and turn and start going down for our second green row. Whoops, went too far. All right, and we'll start our next green row. Okay, got the other 9 and 15. So now we're going to share this white bead again, just like on our pattern. It tells us when to add and when to share. Just pull that a little too tight there. All right, then we'll do the next set of 15. And then we will share this purple and finish up with our 9. All right, we're going to then start our next row. It's going to come up this way. So we'll share this white and this purple. All right, we'll do 15 more green. And then we will share this purple. Okay, so now that's 3 of our 4 rows of green, but now we're going to do similarly like what we did a minute ago on the other end with the pink. We're going to come outside here and then cross down back over. So we're going to go down 9 and then we're going to cut back toward the center, share the white bead, and then share the purple bead. And then we will finish up after turning at the end of this line. We'll continue just in that same in and down direction there. Oh, we got a fly in here. And then we'll finish up with our last 9 green. 7, 8, 9, purple, and the turning bead. Okay. So there we have 3 of our 4 colors done. Finished up with the green. And so now that we just finished up with the green right here, so come up and down. All that's left now is to do our last 3 lines, which are going to be red. And the red are going to share all 3 of the center nodes. So we're still going to be adding the purple beads at the end before we add our turning bead, but all of the center beads on the red will be shared. And then we'll be done with this building kind of our net shape here. And then I will show you how to close this up to get it into a cylinder to be ready to go on the bulb and close up. All right, so following along with our pattern for lines 13 through 15, we will start by adding our 9 beads. Three, 9, and then we will share here. And then our next step, we're gonna do 15 and share with this bead. At this point, you can kind of tell where you're supposed to be sharing next, because most of the beads have got the shared node already. So we're really not kind of just going in and filling in this process. So we're going to be coming up here to this white, and then we'll come up here to this purple and then turn. So 9, we'll do our extra purple and our turning bead. Yeah, so that's the right number of red beads there, but you can see how that looks like it might be a little bit more full than some of the others. If it still looks that way once the project is finished, you can just take some like little flat nose pliers and you can break a bead or two in there and it will lay down just fine. So we'll turn starting with 9. Then again, we're going to just kind of, at this point, look at where these beads are. So we can see we got one to share here, here, and here. So that's exactly where we're going to be going here. On this red. Okay, now we'll be ready for our very last line here in our beading to go around the outside of the bulb. You can see here we've got these last 3 beads in here that are not shared yet. So we want to pull those in. Okay, and then now we'll add our last 9. And like always, we're going to finish up with the turning bead. Right. Okay. So now I'm going to actually use a darker blue for closing up this net, just so that we can see it clearly as a separate color as we add it in. If you're doing just a solid color or using the fire sequence, then you would just continue in your normal pattern. But for this demonstration, trying to align this with our instructions, I just want to be clear that this is a separate part of the process. We are actually done with the white and the purple though, so I'm going to go ahead and clear out my space of that so it's not distracting us. Okay. So I think that the easiest way to see this next part here, to see exactly what we're doing, is just to take a regular, any sort of piece of paper, solid white, and then kind of fold it up a little bit so that it's pretty narrow, and then lay that in the middle of your project so you can more easily see exactly what it is that we're doing. So I'm going to just take this. This is just like a normal piece of letter paper that I folded into quarters to lay down here into the center. And now what we're going to do to make this into a cylinder is we're just going to fold over this side and lay it here into the middle on our paper, and do the same thing on this side. And now as you can see, we've got a few more pieces here. So we've got 1, 2, 3 more nodes that aren't sharing with another line yet. So we want to close this up by utilizing those nodes that are still open. So we're going to do that. We're going to start with 9. Just, it's going to be the exact same numbers of what we've been doing the whole time. So I'm going to take 9 of this blue, again, just to have a different color to show that this is our kind of our seaming step here. Okay, so added 9. And then we're going to go down. And this is a little bit different as far as the direction goes because we're going to go back and forth sewing this together. So we want to come from the top and back towards the seam. And then we'll do 15. And again, I know these colors do not look good together. This really is just hopefully to help everybody see how this comes together. And you can watch the other videos for a much nicer looking Christmas ornament. And then we'll come down here, this white. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to come from the top and then back in towards the center since we're just closing up the seam. Whoops. Then 15 more. Okay, and then now we're down here to the bottom. You can see we've got this last purple over here that's all alone. All the rest of them have come to points. You got this little guy still by itself, so that is the last place we're going to seam up here. So we'll take 9 beads. 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we're going to come in here and we will come down and through that very first bead. So remember this bead here by our knot, that's the very first bead that we added. And we are going to come back to that here at the end. So now we have turned our little net into a cylinder. And this little cylinder will drop nicely over our 2.36 inches Christmas bulb. And then we will cinch together the top and the bottom, just feeding beads, and there's another video you can watch on that. Those will cinch all the way together, the top and the bottom, and then your ornament is done, and it will look something like this for the ones that you actually finish. Will not be these not so lovely colors that we did here, hopefully to help everyone visualize what we're doing. So this is our finished to the point of being a cylinder and ready for the top and the bottom being finished. It is our cylinder net that we made. I do think it's easiest to see that when we have a paper laying in there. But once you get to this point, you're ready to drop in the bulb and cinch up the top and the bottom. And your ornament then is ready to either hang on your tree or to give away. Thank you all.